Welcome to the tokenmarket.net podcast. I am your host, Gavin Knight. Thank you for tuning in. Check out our site for digital asset research, a calendar of upcoming events, and many future upcoming releases. Our podcast features team members of projects in the cryptocurrency space to help shed light on their developments. Just because a project is on our podcast doesn't mean we recommend investment, so always research and engage wisely. We are here with Wings.ai. I am here with Stas Oskin, who is doing business development and also is a core developer. So he's doing both. And he is in Israel, and we're going to go over the Wings.ai sale, which is starting shortly. So first I want to ask how you guys kind of started this idea and the process. When did it start, and what was the catalyst for starting Wings?
Sure. So first of all, it's great to be there. Thank you for taking the time to host me, and we will be happy to answer all your questions and provide you with full information about the project. In a nutshell, we started Wings at the beginning of the year in February, because we started seeing the resurgence of the crowdfunding campaigns, the so-called ICOs. And we basically seen there was quite a lot of deficiencies in those models. We thought that there's a great opportunity, especially for projects and for companies, but the process today is lacking. It's very chaotic and doesn't have any kind of order or structure. So we decided to develop a platform which will bring some order in this chaos, and will actually enable companies to very easily set up their own campaigns, get evaluated, funded, and then govern it with the help of the community.
All right, so I'm just going to ask one of the softball kind of questions I get a lot. Obviously, the DAO happened, and there were issues, and I think you were there. Someone in our chat said, isn't this just the DAO again? So as a frame of reference, maybe you could talk about how this is different from the DAO, and also how do you define a DAO? It's kind of a liquid concept. So I'd like to know how your company defines DAO, and if it's different than maybe what people know from their first experience.
Of course. So first of all, let's answer on the second question. We actually do not bind between the DAO, which happened earlier this year, and the DAO in general, because we believe there are totally different things. DAO, in its nutshell, is a concept which speaks about the ability of community to come together to a decision, and then have some automation to execute this decision without any kind of middleman touch. It's actually a known problem in the governance, in organizations, governments, companies, whatever, where there is some executive layer deciding on some kind of decision, and then the middle layer are not always following on this decision, or sometimes making it doing difficult. And we believe that DAOs introduce a very elegant solution of this, where basically once a decision has been taken by the community, the machine, and for the moment doesn't matter if it's a smart contract or a centralized system or anything, the machine then executes these decisions and guarantees that the decision will be taken. And we believe that DAOs creates a very transparent, fair, and auditable way of making decision, hence the name decentralized autonomous organizations, where basically the community decides according to its power of its voice, and then has the smart contracts perform this decision. We think it's a very exciting method of governing things. We think it will gain more and more adoption in the years to come. We believe we will see a lot of companies or organizations popping up which will adopt this structure, and we're very interested and want basically to be one of the platforms that will facilitate creation of such organizations. So I hope it answered on your question.
Yeah, so I know your answer in the text was sort of the DAO is more a pool of resources and they allocate it to funds. In your case, it's a structure to create companies, and you mentioned that there's separate tokens. So each entity is kind of separated from the thing. So maybe you could talk a
Yeah,
little bit about how does the token work in your system? Is it an investment for other companies, or is it a utility token that provides, like Ethereum has gas, so in theory, their idea is that it is what powers applications. So why don't we talk a little bit about what the Wings token is?
yeah. Actually, before that, I just would like to answer on your first question about what you say about what the difference of Wings between the DAO. In actual, the DAO was a decentralized VC fund. They have pooled lots of money, lots of funds, and then they started to think, okay, what we actually going to do with this collected money, and they tried to do various decisions until they got eventually, as you know, filtered. They got the smart contract breached, and then they lost the funds, and then the whole thing kind of collapsed. We are doing this completely oppositely in like 180 degrees. We basically enable each company to have its own set of tokens and smart contracts. In actual, Wings is a launchpad or a generator of new DAOs. This is very important for several reasons. First reason is that basically it creates a total decentralization between each and every project, and Wings for the matter. So if something happens to any project, gets hacked, there's some misbehavior of the founders, there's some issues with it, it has no influence whatsoever on any other project or on the Wings for the matter. Because the moment the project is launched, it's totally disconnected from the Wings platform. Also, from a legal perspective, it's very important because DAO was an intermediary. It's kept the funds of the users and then wanted to see how it can utilize them for the projects. And being intermediary, it brings a lot of various legal and regulatory issues. It basically creates a responsibility for the funds and for the tokens. That's why with Wings, Wings is never an intermediary. Any collected funds go directly to each project on smart contracts. They're never even passed through Wings. So this is a very important second distinction, where Wings basically just a platform that facilitates creation of new projects via smart contracts and tokens, and does not participate in any way in their own funding. Okay, so I hope this answers on your first question of how basically Wings is different from the DAO, from the aspect of tokens. Now, as per question, what exactly the tokens are and how they are work. Wings actually does not limit how people want to use it. I mean, it's a fully decentralized platform. Whoever wants to use it for any purpose, he can use it. There's no any kind of guidelines or restrictions and work. We produce a fully compatible Ethereum protocol EEP20 tokens, which are completely disconnected from Wings and can be utilized by any project or exchange or wallet or anything that supports Ethereum tokens. Now, while we do this, and especially with the companies which we could work closely hand to hand, we always advise them to structure their offering as an application or a software token. This because it keeps them safe from various regulatory issues. And as experience shows, there is a lot of methods and ways to create an offering, a token offering, without actually becoming a security or anything. There is a lot of things that you can do by solely working with a token, as it was indeed a gas or a fuel or an application token or an anti-spam fee. And that's what we suggest all the projects that we work with, and certainly the ones that we helping them with their own campaigns. But again, we do not demand this, and we also don't have actually any kind of control over it because the platform is centralized. So if tomorrow a project wants to use its own, its own issuance, and because the platform is decentralized, it can actually do whatever it wants. There's no limit on this.
So,
Mhm.
so the crowd sale token. So I think you're answering the question, but maybe just not in a way that everyone will understand. So if I buy the crowd sale token, is it used for people to create DAOs? Does it have a purpose? What brings the value, and what will raise the value or drop the value of that
Sure.
token that I'm initially buying? And is there fees, or I mean, are there fees in the model, or Is there some demand because you needed to interact with the, say, core or the main part that issues these new DAOs?
Sure. In a nutshell, what we recommend is basically for any kind of company or project to integrate the token inside their business process. A good example for it can be the Factom project, which you're probably familiar with, where basically every purchase of the entry credits facilitates their Factom token. So in this case, Factom token is no a security by any measure, but it is participates in the transfer of value from the purchased funds into the entry credits. It's a great example how you can structure an offering without actually triggering any kind of regulation security. Because the token participates in the actual purchase of the service that Factom provides for the matter, and because the more people use the Factom service, the more there's the implicit demand created for the Factom tokens, it enables to create an appreciations in value, but without actually promising or giving any kind of return or any kind of revenues. This, by the way, very similar to how Bitcoin became what we know today. I mean, when you had just a small bunch of guys using it, the value was kind of small. Once it, broken into the public understanding, and many people started it and using it for the purpose of both sending and funds and storing value inside, the appreciation increases rapidly. So we see those models exactly possible with tokens as well, without again promising any kind of revenues or profits or distribution, which then indeed brings it to the area of securities.
So let me just rephrase that. So the token itself, if it's integrated into a lot of projects, allows them to bootstrap value, so they can exchange the Wings token back and forth, and it's very seamless to integrate. So the idea is that this will be used by companies that are doing offerings, so that they have an exchange mechanism, because maybe the Wings token is more secure. So it's sort of the house token, it's the recommended token, and then they can also have their own tokens and maybe create a relationship between the two. So is that kind of what you're saying?
No. Actually, that's what I was saying was kind of opposite. Wings token has no relation to the launched projects tokens. They're totally separate. In fact, the Wings token is used for enabling companies to both list their proposals on the platform, and then enabling the platform users to forecast on the project successes. This is the main two vehicles of the Wings token, and this is actually where its implicit appreciation will be increasing, because you will need Wings. Because you will need Wings tokens in order to list your proposal, and because you will need the Wings tokens in order to forecast on the proposal, and because basically forecasting proposals gives you a totally new way of getting tokens in this proposal without actually having to participate in the ICO and in the usual rat race that everybody trying to to beat each other and throw money in order to try to get a bigger share. We see that Wings token will have its own appreciation because the more people will use the platform, more companies and more groups. This is about the Wings tokens on itself. You also have the company tokens, which are created every time a company does a crowd sell. And in this specific case, its token appreciation very depends on how the company integrates it in its own business process.
It seems like we've come full circle. So my understanding is it's utility, what I call it, a utility token. It enables people to interact with the system, so they can list projects, they can rate projects, and there's probably some other functionality that creates demand for the token. So I kind of asked this initially, but we're kind of bouncing it back and forth. So essentially, as companies are listing on Wings and their people are forecasting projections and things like this, the token has utility. It provides the ability to use certain functionalities in the Wings platform, and so that's why it has value, right? It's just like you said, Factom. If you buy Factom, the utility is that you can encode for X amount. And okay, so there we've established value for the token. So I think that's good for me. Let's move on a little bit. So
just a little quick.
Go ahead.
Just a little to summarize, because maybe it was cut off. The inherent value of Wings tokens comes from the fact that it enables you to get tokens from the launching campaigns without actually having to participate in their crowdfunding campaign. It kind of creates a totally new way to gain tokens without having to participate in the usual, rat race, where you have to, to jump with everybody in the first bonus day, bonus hour, whatever, and trying to get your share. So this actually what helps, in my opinion, explain the best the value of the Wings tokens, because it creates for you a new channel, a new opportunity of getting the project tokens.
Right. Okay. So it's a way to also interact with tokens that are, projects that are raising, and maybe it's easier and more fair than what would be uh, what we see now, which is it's fine with me, I guess. But there's a new project, they have a new token, and there's a new investment. So this is sort of all encompassing. So if there's 10 projects running, you could sort of manage that all through one, let's say, wallet, I suppose.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let's just dip into another really important question to me, which is security. So first I'd ask, what's your code base and what type of blockchain, or I think you mentioned that you have an Ethereum EP20 contract. So can you talk a little bit about the structure, the code base?
Sure.
And I know you're also thinking about rootstock. So
Sure.
so Ethereum and rootstock.
Yeah, sure, of course. So in actual, our code is completely blockchain independent as long as as long as it supports the EVM, the Ethereum virtual machine. In fact, all our development so far has been using an Ethereum virtual machine. That said, strategically we decided to launch on Rootstock. We're actually working with them since the late spring. It's like, I think 5 or 6 months maybe. We were one of the limited partners who used their private alpha. And this due to the sole reason that we believe that companies and projects will prefer, first of all, to get funded back it in Bitcoin rather in Ethereum. Two reasons. First of all, Bitcoin, for this moment at least, more stable than Ethereum. Ethereum, we have wild swings back and left, especially if there's some kind of network attack on the system or on the blockchain or anything like this. And this kind of creates a lot of uncertainty for companies, because if you raise like, I don't know, $2 million for a project, and then tomorrow because of any kind of fork attack you suddenly have only 1 million left or even less, it's kind of very hard to plan budget with this kind of approach. Bitcoin in this respect more stable. It's more it gives you, it also has of course its swings, but at least it's more stabilizing. It has much more time to appreciate in prices. It grows up
So
in very linear way. Even
with
despite its
rootstock, you're going to have easy conversion between Wings and Bitcoin without
Exactly.
having to use an exchange. So basically this is interesting to me. Ethereum, obviously, there's a lot of projects coming up. I like the amount of development that's gone in, but I've been following rootstock for a long time. And if people don't know, rootstock is basically Ethereum on a side chain to Bitcoin. So people can lock in Bitcoin to rootstock. And then, as it sounds, people will be able to exchange Wings and hold value with Bitcoin as the ultimate token, per se, rather than Ethereum, which we've seen, fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, there's been rifts in Ethereum, there's been forks, and that's caused a little bit of instability with the price. So adding Bitcoin kind of gives you a more, let's say, larger market cap, easier coin to convert because there's more options. So is rootstock
and a more stable budget, which is very important for companies, and a more stable budget planning. Important to understand it's not only for us, but actually any company which will be launching through Wings will also be able to have such kind of Bitcoin to its own token conversion.
So let me just take it through the process here. And this is interesting. So I'm just trying to get people, everybody's on a different level. So kind of what we're saying is you take the Bitcoin, you would use a side chain. So you use something called a swap. The Bitcoin would go into rootstock. And in theory, you could actually use the Bitcoin to invest in companies directly through the Wings platform without having to have some site where you send it to a Bitcoin or escrow or all these other things. You can actually do the exchange through Rootstock with a Bitcoin. So
Exactly.
you
This is
get
the
rid of the intermediary or sort of like the manual part of it to convert to Bitcoin.
Well, it's not totally new because it also was possible in past, but it was usually possible with a manual way. I mean, you had some kind of centralized system where you sent your bitcoins, and then somebody had to create a new Genesis block and distribute it. But it's all manual, error prone, and the most problematic, it created an intermediary, as we discussed before. By utilizing Wings and Rootstock, you can actually let the smart contracts to do all the work. The smart contracts create the new project tokens in smart contracts. Then you actually can send bitcoins to the project. Again, I'm very important to emphasize you do not send funds to Wings and then they somehow send it to the new project. You actually interacting directly with the project. And then the project smart contracts will distribute the tokens directly to the people who participated in the crowdfunding. So it's indeed kind of cuts a lot of middleman work, always all the possible issues that people were prone to it, and it's indeed enables people to have a very quick and easy ability to acquire the tokens in exchange in their Bitcoin. I mean, it's just as simple as just take your get to your Bitcoin wallet, send the funds to some address, and get and exchange the tokens. Simple as that.
Right, yeah. I mean, I primarily interact with Bitcoin. Of course, I'm interested in some ICO investments and such, but Bitcoin is my store of value, and I would prefer to be able to interact with that. And getting rid of exchanges and central, authorities and things like that obviously does lift some of the security concerns. But kind of what I'm asking is, like, how much auditing have you done on your own code for security and for new companies? So I create a DAO and I have a structure. How
Sure.
will the community know that that DAO is secure? And how also will the community know that that group is trustworthy? So how do you facilitate, I would say security and trust when
Sure.
you're using this open type of system?
Of course. So this actually the two issues that we worked a lot to solve them. They also outlined in the white paper. In nutshell, we have done already some initial security audit for our own platform. However, after we do our campaign, we're going to hire not one but two security groups, which will be working in parallel on making sure our contracts are bulletproof. That's why actually Wings itself, the campaign itself, will not yet collect the funds into smart contracts, but we will use a trusted escrow members, including people who are very known in the community and will be also part of the Wings Foundation, which are, by the way, registered in Swiss, in order to keep access to those funds because via multi-sig fashion, because we yet not 100% sure our contracts are bulletproof and we do not want to risk it. Okay, so it's a very important point about the Wings itself. The upcoming campaigns which will be launching on Wings will be already using a totally decentralized smart contracts. So because we have always assumed the worst, that even despite all the security checks and auditions and the stuff, there still may be some kind of security holes. I mean, the one with the DAO was even not only in the DAO contracts level, but also if you remember on the level of the Ethereum Solidity compiler, which enabled some bug, we call it double renters bug, which allowed the siphoning of the funds. We created a mechanism which basically utilizes Rootstock federation model. So if you're familiar with Rootstock federation model, it's a collection of highly respected companies in the Bitcoin space, exchanges, wallet companies, exchanges like Bitstamp, Huobi, BTCC, OKCoin, wallets providers like Jax, like Blockchain Info, and so on, which will be actually able to control the outgoing transactions from the smart contracts. In nutshell, we will enable project creators an optional, it's very important to notice, it's not mandatory, an optional way to secure their smart contracts with a last case scenario kill switch. So in case the smart contracts still getting breached and the funds still getting out, the project creators will have an opportunity using their own private key, submit a request to this federation to have the transaction dropped. It's kind of very similar to how Xapo Vault or Coinbase Vault, if you're familiar with them, operate. You basically store some significant sum in those vaults, and then when you want to withdraw, you basically get an opportunity for kind of, I don't know, 24 hours, 84 hours to cancel the request. So we adapting same model, but for the decentralized fashion, where funds which are getting out of the smart contracts will be staged on the federation level and will give the project creator opportunity to drop those transactions, which means that even doesn't create any kind of forks. They just never get committed into the Bitcoin blockchain, and they lock the contracts until the issue is investigated and resolve it. So, so we basically believe that by approaching this security problem from two important angles, one is from doing as much of security auditing and verification as we can. By the way, we're also employing some formal verification tool in order to make sure that the contract do what we do, but again, and auditing. And from the other angle, assuming that the worst still can happen, and then creating a mechanism that will enable the project creators to prevent those transactions actually being going to committed to the blockchain and taking the funds out. We believe we create a very good security solution which will cover the majority of the cases, if not them all. Okay, so this is about the security part. If you have any questions, you're welcome.
Right. So let me just summarize. So basically, with the DAO, you bought directly into the smart contract and you got the token. And the smart contract, I assume that they had the best interests of everyone, but unfortunately, there's some things they didn't see coming. So what you're doing is you're sticking with the old-fashioned model, multi-signature. Let's collect funds and let's have it in a very secure, trusted, known way. And then
for Wings only, it's for our own campaign. For the large companies, we already will be using fully decentralized smart contracts model.
Yes, I understand. But for the campaign, for people that are investing, you're going to use basically multi-signature setup that is probably the most trusted thing in Bitcoin, and which I'm saying in my own opinion, and cold wallets, multi-sig, and in addition, like you said, federated nodes or a federated system. Now, I assume that you have some mobility, so if in the long term you decide to move away from that, you could. But what you're saying is, from a security perspective, let's start with this federated system of companies that are trustworthy, and the worst case scenario, we have a kill switch. So I understand that. Now, when a company creates a proposal, how much security auditing goes into their coding, and how do people know, for instance, okay, a great proposal comes out. How do I know that these people are trustworthy? They won't just issue the coins and take it. So sure. I'm kind of trying to get. That's a very hard question, or a very hard thing to solve. But how do you do security auditing of companies, and how do you make sure, essentially, they don't steal your money?
Sure. So now actually speaking about the trust, before we discuss the security.
Yes, and security and trust of new companies. So,
I understand.
So we understand Wings sounds pretty solid to me, but when someone submits their own smart contract, you're kind of putting the onus on them to have an auditor to make sure that it's correct. They could actually submit code that's they don't know what they're doing, or they make a mistake. And also it could be somebody just submitting it on this network and boom,
they
split.
It works a bit differently. Every new company which is launched on Wings, first of all, uses Wings smart contract templates, which are public. They sit in GitHub. They're audited, as I told you before, we're going to audit them by at least two security companies, very common in the world. And basically, every new company which starts using those smart contracts as a baseline, they have to. This hence where comes the name of Wings as a launchpad for companies, a generator of smart contracts. There is we're going to provide a flexible enough campaign creation engine generator, which will enable to cover most of the needs of the companies. And of course, we're going to update it following community requests and companies requests. But by using our smart contracts as a starting point, it will ensure that that those contracts will be as safe as possible. So this is important point number one. In case the companies wants to change those smart contracts into their own modifications, they will have the tools for this. We'll provide a toolset for that, but they will have to actually receive the approval of the majority of their communities. This is actually where the DAO comes into play. So the companies will, if they will want to update the smart contracts, they will need to submit a new proposal, which will also include this new smart contract code. And basically their own community will have to participate in decision making and decide whether they agree if the smart contract can be updated to this new version or not. Okay, so this is a very important point, because once the project is launched and it's disconnected from the Wings platform, the power, how it evolves, is completely in the community hand, from the point of how the smart contracts control it, or how the tokens divided, or even if tomorrow the company says, okay, we need to make another round of tokens, the community have to decide whether they really agree to that and they want to do this. Okay, it's totally in hands
Right.
of the
So there's an inherent voting mechanism that comes with the
Exactly.
Wings template, but
Exactly.
if they could actually remove whatever they want as long as they adhere to the initial voting mechanism.
Exactly.
Now,
I mean, once they remove it, I mean, it can be everything. But to do this initial step, they will have the community majority agreement. So this is about the items of the security, and how basically making sure the companies do not shoot in their own foot by bringing some kind of untested code or innovation. Now, as per trust, it's also very important for us, and that's why we're actually introducing a milestone model into the crowdfunding process. Today, the whole, crowdfunding area, especially ICOs, but also the more traditional Kickstarter, has a big problem where basically once the money are collected, there is no any kind of control of community over the project. You see this both in the ICOs, where they just kickstart the project, and then the team became quite lax, because it's human psychology. Once you raise the funds, you kind of have less pressure to start working on it, and or there are even much more worse cases of total shams which happening. And of course, you have the traditional Kickstarter where you can back some product and then get totally different one. As example, I backed some smartwatch which was promised to give me ability to swim with it, and I got in the end a smartwatch which I couldn't even wash hands. So it's kind of an example to this. And it all happens because all those models are based on the fact where the funds, once they're collected, are immediately going into the project creator use. There's actually also reason for this. Kickstarter, for example, could never become any kind of intermediary holding them, because it was open it to legal action from both the project creators and from the users. So that's why they never did any kind of funds storage, and this is actually a problem that smart contracts solve. So what we propose to the community as a new standard of those campaigns is actually enabling the project creators to make milestones. So for example, first milestone can be the launch of the prototype. Second milestone can be the production. Third milestone can be the marketing community. And the funds of each next milestone are only released after the previous milestone was completed. In a nutshell, the project creator, when he wants to get the next milestone funds, needs to submit a proposal, again, on his platform via its own smart contracts, saying, okay, guys, I completed my commitments. I would like to get the next milestone funds. And the community needs to agree whether they agree to it or they block those funds in the system and negotiate with him about what exactly he needed to deliver. We believe it gives back the so needed leverage into the hands of the community. And thanks to the smart contracts today, it removes any kind of intermediary risk from any specific person or organization, because the smart contracts, the DAO actually, which answers the DAO part, decides whether to release those funds. If you think about it, it's actually like all the regular business operates. If you go and do some contractual work, you're never going to get paid everything. It will be all staged at milestones. If you go and raise money from VC, especially if you are an unknown team, no VC will give you all the money you raise it. It will give you a portion of them and put the rest of them into some kind of escrow, some kind of legal counselor, which then only release it after you've proven you gain the necessary traction or the necessary prototype or whatever. We believe this is thoroughly missing in this world, and this is actually why we voluntarily doing the same for us. If you look in our campaign terms, even that we had the smart contracts already our own, we are voluntarily, with the supervision of both our legal company and with the Swiss foundation authorities, commit that we will touch the next portion of the funds only after we have completed working on the previous milestone. This is our commitment to the community, which will be supervised and managed by the Swiss authorities. So we kind of eating our dog food here, putting this model on us, and then we hoping to enable the same standard for companies by using the smart contracts.
Right. I think, we've all been burned at one point, probably like the smartwatch thing or something. And obviously the DAO brought up a lot of things. And I kind of thought of it in two ways, it was a learning experience. So, it was a mistake. It happened and we learned from it. So it sounds like a lot of kind of, you've probably spent more time on security following the DAO because it brought up some questions. So that's good. I think that's good. I think that's good that you're holding yourself to the same standards. I recommend traditional businesses like the ones I work with, to pay people hourly or to pay people based on results. So that is just a very common thing we do. And so the DAO is an example of here's all the money and then let's just sort of go. So I do like that. Now,
it's not only the DAO. If you see any project in the space,
yes.
I mean, I don't want to mention names again, but you see that actually lots of projects which raise a lot of money, you suddenly see drop in their involvement. I mean, it doesn't say it's the kind of, run with the money. I mean, God forbid or something, but you see a bit of drop into enthusiasm. You see less communication with the community. You see less standing in milestones in times they promise it. And actually it's kind of a psychological thing, human thing, because once you work it so hard and made a very successful campaign and got those funds, it's kind of psychologically it reduces your will to run with it. You kind of more relaxed. So but we don't believe in being relaxed. We want to remove this relaxation point.
Right.
And we want to keep both the companies and ourselves on our toes. We want that everybody will be working hard in order to reach the next milestone, to get the next funds. Know that they're actually, the project life depends on how they manage the project. Know they cannot burn money mindlessly without having any kind of accountability. And we think that by creating the system of milestones, and in our case, putting this in the control of Swiss authorities, and by the companies we're going to launch, putting this into smart contracts management, released by the community, we create this necessary pressure to move forward and not forward, exactly as this pressure exists with the standard, so-called, traditional startup companies today.
Right. I totally understand. I mean, you're starting on the right foot. You're trying to do everything you can. In technology, you never know what to expect, but it sounds like you're taking all the steps to start how it should be. Now, I'm going to just go through the process. So let's say I list a company. Would I make a website? Would I appeal on the forum? Like, how would I say, like, hey, I'm Gavin. I'm going to make a company that, invents flying cars and it blah, 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 blah. How much can I research inside of Wings? How much do you think people should have a website and stuff like that?
Yeah,
because
sure.
just even with these models and all of these things, and obviously Wings has a website, you have a white paper, you have things like that. So how will you either recommend or facilitate that process of companies really talking about what they're doing? Slockit, I felt like, Slockit was interesting, but I didn't feel like there was a full description and things like that. But they at least had a website and stuff, so you could see with the DAO, Slockit was being considered,
Sure.
and they have. So I'm repeating myself here, but I think I was layering questions earlier, so this is an important one to me. How will people learn about those companies? How will
Sure.
they know who's involved, what they're doing, that they're legitimate, and make a decision? Because no matter what system you have, you still have to, just like we're doing now, ask questions and do the research in that
Sure.
company. So Wings launches, and then Gavin launches Gavin Company.
Sure.
So what does Gavin Company do? Website, forum?
Okay, I will explain you. First of all, this actually where we see the forecast markets which we enable came into play. Because each and every project launched on Wings has the ability to get initial evaluation by the community regarding its prospects to get funds. We actually believe it's a very important stage because this is what also missing in today's crowdfunding career. When you basically list a project, you kind of have one shot to make it right. And once it's running, you cannot actually change anything. I mean, if you try to change the terms to improve them, you will kind of, impact the guys who already participated. So we will create an environment and fair environment for them. So that's why there is a lot of projects, even good ones, which because they missed something, because they didn't have enough marketing, because they didn't sold well their business model or something, they just fail in collecting the necessary funds for the launch. So that's why we basically going to enable a stage where people will be able to forecast on how much funds that or this project going to raise. It's actually one of the core mechanics of Wings, the forecast markets. By this, we actually will enable an early community feedback to the project creator, which will enable a very tight and close interaction loop between the project creator and the community, because the project creator then will have the opportunity to improve its message and offering. So as you asked before, let's give you an example of the process. In nutshell, to use Wings platform, you don't need anything. We will provide a Kickstarter-like process where you can just upload your video, upload your description, put your white papers and stuff. But you will agree with me that if you do not provide much information beyond this, or you don't have any kind of website, or you don't have any kind of team bios, the community will evaluate your project quite low, or even if it sees it's a total sham or low quality, that it can even use its power to delist it from the platform. We basically will enable the Wings tokens holders to mark such project as low quality or sham and remove them from the project. So we see it's already creating a natural pressure on the project creators to be as transparent as possible and to provide as much information as possible, and also do all the necessary preparation work like websites, marketing campaign materials and stuff, even before the approach to the platform. Okay.
Right. So inside of the platform, I can view a lot of information about the company. There's a prediction market, sort of, for other people to say, I've been around, this doesn't look good, XYZ. So you get that feedback. And then, of course, as a company, if you want to raise a lot of money, you should do your own promotions or your own website. So that's up to them. But you're going to give enough information to basically try to guide people in the right direction. No one's going to be a perfect investor, right? I mean, you're going to hit and miss, but it sounds like you've covered that. So sorry that I layered questions earlier. I just kind of really wanted to understand that model, and it's better. It is better than I thought it was going to be. So I will give you that. I didn't foresee the whole system. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, it takes time to understand. I agree.
Well, it's like a 5-step or 4-step plan, right? Like you have the templates that have been audited that are secure. The company creates the profile and submits the information. The community votes on it, and hopefully that they have this step-by-step funding, and then based on that, people in the community will allocate Bitcoin or whatever the process for that DAO is, right? So that sounds good. I think that's a good step-by-step model. So let's talk a little bit.
Just an important point to add to this, that basically the community doesn't vote, but it forecasts. The community forecasts how well this campaign will perform. So that's why we already expect the community will create a pressure on the project to become more transparent, to become more better. Because again, if it's a project which hides information or something that will very quickly pop up in the discussion, and people will quickly see this. Because we're also going to have a reputational history for every Wings participant, showing how right he or she were in their historic forecast. It also means that if those people, with a higher public rating will say, okay, guys, this project hides stuff or doesn't look too good, people will trust their opinion, and then it will force the project in return to become more transparent, to add more details. So we basically looking towards making the community the best curators of the project, being able to spot early some, unclear or let's say shady items, and forcing the companies to come to the light and be more open and transparent about their business and their processes. And you know what? Right. If the companies can improve their proposal and business plan sense to that, it's great. Exactly what we're trying to do, because we actually want to make these companies work hard when they're passing through this evaluation stage, and do like a lot of pivots. The startup usually does pivots during its life, but it's usually takes some months or weeks or whatever. We actually want to force the company to make a lot of fine tuning to its initial offering, which they offer to the community, and to reach some kind of proposal which will be both satisfying their community and their company itself. And we think it's possible to reach within this limited amount of time.
Yeah, I'll say to my listeners, I try to do my best. I started this as another project, but I ask questions and I try to bring some transparency. But we've talked about this with a few people. How do you do fair voting? I mean, people get paid to tweet. People get paid to upvote. People get paid to say positive things. And I'll tell you, I'm not paid to say positive things about Wings. But what I'm saying is, how do you do that? And that's actually really important because, I've known with ICOs and stuff, you go to the website and it says, if even your website, of course, oh, this is the best thing. I mean, you have good language, but some of them say this is the best revolutionary thing. And you go on Bitcoin Talk and people are saying it's great. And you don't know really if they have, do they have coins at stake? Are they an investor? Are they, so this is basically what I was thinking about before is, staking people in the system, showing that they have coins, and then letting them help guide, everyone for the benefit of Wings. Because obviously, I see it as like this: if a company comes along and launches with Wings and it's a scam and then Wings looks bad. So people want to protect the value of the Wings brand, right?
Exactly.
But we all have to admit there's going to be hits and misses, right? Even the best. There's some.
Yeah, we totally prepare for this. No, nothing is perfect, but we think by putting, the curation power in the community hand, rather than some company, we create a much wider spot of a much wider coverage and ability to come up with a much efficient filter, of the signal to noise, of lowering the low quality or shams down and putting the community focus on the high quality offerings and companies, because that's exactly what we want Wings to do. We want Wings to enable community to pinpoint and focus on the real quality projects. This is our goal.
Right. And I mean, all I'm saying is I've seen projects that are very quality. I've seen people that are super smart, and sometimes it doesn't work out. As you know, in VC type investment, you'll have 5 great companies and you'll invest in the 5 and maybe, one really makes it big. So of course, right. You got to do your best. You got to try to eliminate the worst, bring the best to the top, and then, let them do what they're going to do. Market is going to market, and we're going to see. So let's move on. I think I really wanted to understand that whole flow because that's fascinating to me. And I think it's also really interesting that you're sort of trying to improve. You're trying to do the right thing for the community. It sounds like, kind of part of your ethos is that the system is broken, the way people are funding, the way people are deciding, how it's being allocated. So, part of what Wings is sort of this maybe beacon of hope.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily totally broken. I would say it's like in a very chaotic state of things today. And there is a lot of room for optimization and infrastructure and bringing some order. And we think that by bringing this order, being able to curate quality projects and being able to hold this project accountable to their promises via the milestones, we think we make the ecosystem healthier because it creates a great vehicle to pop quality projects up. Maybe those who are traditional investors are passing on because they're either too short-sighted or they're under the herd effect. You know how it works. I mean, when Bitcoin came up, everybody laughed of it. I mean, none of the mainstream, companies even thought about going in this. Only when it became a thing in 2013, then you suddenly see all the VCs jumping on the bandwagon. So we think that by enabling community to pinpoint and spot those quality projects that might have been passed by the general venture capital industry, we kind of enable some good things, which will make the work for the better, improve it. And we will give them the necessary support, both from the funding and from the community-wise promotion that they deserve.
Right, exactly. I mean, I didn't mean that the whole thing's broken, but there's always room to improve, and so I see this as one way to approach the issue. So now that we've gone through that whole process, I really kind of wanted to understand, because this is not just a system, it's also an investment vehicle, and it's difficult to recreate investment, right, in a decentralized fashion. But let's go through some of the features. some of the features you have are auto participation. You can follow a community leader, and also it seems like you really like this chat control. So
Yeah,
maybe you could talk about those: the auto participation, follow community leader, and
sure.
chat control.
Of course. So in actual, one of the ways that we see that we, again, it's a very good lesson that we learned from the DAO. If you remember, the DAO had a tremendous success in collecting funds. There were like thousands of people who participated in this. But once the things came up to actually deciding what projects to fund, the participation rates were kind of, plain and frankly saying, abysmal. I mean, if I remember correctly, the highest amount of participants they managed to reach on the one of the most important issues, which were the security, was like 0.5%. I mean, maybe about like 100 guys out of 1,000 which participated, and they even couldn't pass it because it required a minimum of 3% agree to it. I mean, they already came with a very low amount of, needed to pass the resolution, and they even couldn't reach that. So we believe that this happened from 2 points. One of them was because people didn't have any kind of incentive to do this. Many of just preferred to keep their tokens or sit on their tokens and don't do much with them. And the other one because it was so difficult to actually participate in those votings. So how we basically solve these two items? In the fields of the incentive wise, we do this by utilizing the forecast markets, where basically people by forecasting the success of this or that project with their Wings tokens, for the matter, can get reward for the correct forecasts. And we believe it will create a much higher involvement, which was possible with the DAO. But even if there are people who are too busy and who are not looking to participate at all, we will enable them to grant their power of forecasting to people they want. So if you know the term or the mechanics of liquid democracy, which you're probably familiar with, which basically enables people to give their voting power to their people who they trust more and then take it at the moment instant. It's different from the representative democracy where you give somebody your vote and then he, sits in some kind of parliament or Congress for 4 years and you can't do much about it. In liquid democracy, you can actually give and take your voting power to anyone you want, or you can take it back and use it to vote directly. So we enable something called liquid forecasting, where you can give part of or all of your forecasting power to somebody, and then if this somebody is right, you will share the reward with him. So we believe it will also enable people to basically the ones who are too busy or let's say maybe a bit lazy or don't want to get complicated, to just give to somebody they trust their forecasting power and let this person to utilize it in order to gain rewards. And actually by having a public forecast rating, public reputational system showing the historical performance of each and every member on the platform, the decision of who to give the forecast power, we believe will be much easier, because if you see there's a guy with a historical high performance, you will probably more trust and give him your forecast power than you will give to somebody else. So this is about the incentive to participate. Now, as before the ease of use, we analyzed this a lot, and we seen that the main problem was that people had to download the Mist wallet, and then they go to sync like 20 gigabytes of data, and then use some contract they didn't understand. So we decided kind of just to cut through all this complexity. We decided that we'll take the most common tool today available, which is basically the instant messenger, and we're going to connect those instant messengers to the both Wings and then the subsequent launching projects participation processes. In nutshell, we're going to enable people to chat, to speak with their own DAOs. So you're basically taking a tool, which today is the most used one, and Instant Messenger is like, the most used program on mobile. People use more Instant Messenger than they talk with people actually. And you can actually converse both with other people in your DAO, and you actually can converse with the DAO itself as well, make decisions, make forecasts, decide on proposals, and then use this in order to make your voice heard. And basically, these projects are very simple by either typing some stuff or tapping some buttons. We believe that by doing so, we greatly remove all the technological barrier and all the complications that were before, and we basically enable anyone to participate as much as he wants in a full capacity without any kind of complications. So this is where the part of the instant messaging / chatbots are coming in.
Right. So Let me be honest, it sounds like an amazing project, but it's a lot of things going on, a lot of um, I don't know, pieces, philosophical and different decisions as a team. So, how long do you think this process is going to take? I mean, do you see this being in your grasps? You feel comfortable with the code so far? And how long do you think people should expect? I don't need an exact date, but how long is this whole coding process and development process? Are you forecasting?
Sure. So first of all, it's important to mention that we are not newcomers to this area. We are working in the crypto field since like 2014, at least. I was in companies like Spundulis, which was the company, Israeli company with jet miners, if you remember, the SPT. And I was responsible there for the user interaction and the system and the system upgrades of the miners.
Yeah, it was a good company. I was sad to see it go.
Yeah, no, again, it had its reason, but it was the engineering was great. I mean, it was one of the top of the line back in time, and we did so many nice innovations which are led, like for example, the easy over-the-air upgrade of miners and stuff like that, and very easy to use user interface. So I did my share there, and also our team since 2014 developed a wholly new blockchain, which was called Crypti, if you maybe remember it, and which was later relaunched by part of the team as Lisk, if you remember this stuff.
Right, right. Lisk launched sort of based on Crypti, so it
Exactly.
seems like they
That's
made a lot of money off your invention.
at the beginning of the year, we kind of decided to split. We had been working on a blockchain code since 2014. We kind of became wary of this. We say, okay, we really want to start working on dApps, on applications. And the Lisk team said, no, guys, we want to give a new life to Crypti. And we say, okay, you guys run with Lisk, and we will relaunch and we will launch a new project in the DAO area. And as long as we can take care of existing Crypti token holders, it will be okay. That's why actually there was a very generous plan, if you remember, offered enabling Crypti holders to exchange their Crypti for like twice of market valuation, if you remember back then. So we made sure that we made whole with everybody, and then we actually got the sponsorship by Bitmain, if you remember the Bitmain technologies, and we started working on Wings. So
Yeah, so let's
I'm just trying that we are not newcomers to this world, and we kind of know what we are doing. I mean, again, there's a lot of course, moving parts on this, but we already have the experience of starting in the crypto area. We already have today a working prototype, which includes full interaction of smart contracts based with both Ethereum virtual machine and the IPFS. We use IPFS for storage of the binary information like videos, PDFs, and etc. etc. And we actually now almost finished the implementation of our forecast model. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see that. We discussed this on our white paper. There is just a separate white paper dedicated to the mathematical model beyond Wings forecasts. It was developed by our team member, a professor of mathematics, who teaches in Brazil, in the Unicamp University. And it's kind of was designed from scratch because we wanted to make sure we avoid any kind of possible regulations and legal related to betting or gambling.
right. So are you projecting by the end of the year, or anything like that? Do you have an idea? I know you have to wait for Rootstock to fully launch, I suppose. So
Yeah.
what is your basic timeline? Everyone listening, remember, developers, and we talked about this before, development is not a fixed thing. There could be issues, there could things come up. But do you have a forecast of when?
Yeah, of course. So in actual, we have today a private alpha, which we are already giving the companies we work with, and these companies are already live testing it. We plan to launch a private beta within months and months and a half since Rootstock gets to public beta. Right now, Rootstock, if you know, launched I think 5 days ago in Buenos Aires a private beta, which they're now inviting people to join in. From our information and from what we're talking, they plan to launch their public beta within a month, towards December. And once they have launched it on December, it will take about a month and a half to do all the necessary testing. And then we will launch Wings as well.
Okay, so
if all goes well, we expect it to launch Wings public beta by end of the year, starting very early start of the next year. within months and a half after the Rookstock public beta has been launched as well.
Okay, so how does the Bitmain investment work? They invested in more of the, they invested a sponsorship. Okay,
We are
so
non-profit. We are a non-profit foundation. We cannot. We don't have any kind of investment.
okay. So let me say then, if it's a sponsorship, I I know Bitmain pretty well, just kind of about their company and stuff. So obviously they're vested in improving the value of Bitcoin. So do you think that they see this with Rootstock growing the value of Bitcoin?
Yeah, definitely. The zero stock as basically bringing back, the sexiness back into the Bitcoin, which it lost a bit with all the, if you remember, all the halving block wars and everything else, block size.
Well, yeah, and then Ethereum and all the other projects that are coming out that,
Yeah,
people have been telling me for a long time, okay,
yeah.
Bitcoin can't do this, Bitcoin can't do that,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
basically Bitcoin can do a lot with Rootstock.
Exactly.
So do you think
Actually, Root-
Bitmain is seeing your offering as something that is going to increase the value or at least the interest in Bitcoin?
Sure, of course. Rootstock is very, first important to know that Rootstock actually brings the best of the both worlds. It actually was one of the reasons we also chose them in addition to Bitcoin being a value. It basically brings the flexibility of the Ethereum virtual machine and adds on it the security of the Bitcoin blockchain, which today is the biggest supercomputer and the most secure blockchain ever. You don't see on Bitcoin all this repeating forks and attacks and everything going on Ethereum because Ethereum still, let's be honest, goes through an establishment stage. It still works in order to become an established blockchain, and it's kind of maturing now. Bitcoin has all those years of already been under all these attacks, and that's why when you actually create a platform, a decentralized application, a dApp on top of Rootstock, you already enjoy this kind of security. So certainly Bitmain were interested in sponsoring Wings because we said that we are planning to use Rootstock, and they certainly were looking for killer apps for Rootstock. So that's why Wings is actually one of the killer app for Rootstock. We actually had a space on central stage during this La Bitcoin in Argentina, where our team member came up and was describing Wings as usage of Rootstock. So certainly there is a matter of interest to having the Wings first launch on Bitcoin. But it's very important also to add that we are actually not bound by any agreement or anything from other networks. And that's why we're actually working so hard on cooperations with other companies. Just yesterday, for example, we announced about the Unshares, if you've seen, cooperation between Wings, where we basically will be able to port and support the Unshares virtual machine. And this is basically done in order to support and basically to open the East and West markets, basically enable Eastern backers to participate in Western projects, and in reverse, enable Western backers to participate in Eastern projects. We see a lot of value in this kind of collaborations, and we also, of course, plan to support the mainstream Ethereum as well. Ethereum Classic, the moment we have already running, it's on Rootstock, but we decided again to launch on Rootstock first, both due to Bitmain become a sponsor, and because we still a small team, and we prefer to be focused on one platform, make sure all works good on it, and only then go to the next one.
You already have some entities that have reached out and said, "Hey, I'm interested in using Wings," or so like we said, we were talking just a little bit before. One of the biggest problems with projects is customers and users. So, what kind of projects? You don't have to name names, but what kind of projects have expressed interest, and what would they use it for?
Of course. So first of all, there's actually a big value of part of the team being located in Israel, because we are sitting in Tel Aviv, and you probably know that Tel Aviv is actually considered like the second Silicon Valley of the world. There is a joke there that you can get out to the street, throw a rock, and you're probably going to hit either a startup company, an investor, or or some angel. So this is a common joke in Tel Aviv. So this basically exposes us to a lot of local companies, and we actually meet daily local companies, which are looking at Wings with interest, because we're actually bringing them something they didn't have before. We're bringing them a way to get funded by the community and keep their equity in their pocket in order to have a leverage on their next rounds. And if you think it's actually very important, because if you come today with an idea to the VC or some angel, he probably will take a lot of your equity and give you less space to be able to negotiate in future round. If you're able to gain this early jump start from the community, it gives you a much more space and ability to work in the future and get better terms from the upcoming deals, A round, B round, whatever you do. The only thing that we demand in exchange is that these companies will have a good use case, how they implement those tokens into their business models.
Right.
So today we speak with at least 15 companies about using Wings, where already 5 has done a commitment on listing on Wings.
You listed Shapeshift and Airbits on your site. What kind of support are they going to give Wings?
Okay. For the Shapeshift, we are actually going to enable bakers to both participate in Wings campaign and in the launching project crowdfunding campaigns by using any kind of altcoin supported by Shapeshift. So you basically will be able to just use Shapeshift to convert your funds into the funds accepted by the companies. For example, Wings is going to accept 5 types of currencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, Litecoin, Ripple. But there's some projects which might not want even those 5, and they only want Bitcoin. So it will create an easy way for people to convert their altcoins in a very quick fashion with a Shapeshift. Airbits we're going to use in order to make edge security, and it's very important finds because Airbits have today one of the leading companies in securing people edge security items. We're basically going to enable people have their tokens, which they're going to get both from Wings and from the project they participated in, and their Bitcoins, if any, which they're going to keep, secured by Airbits process. So while we will have our additional layers of security, we also see great value on incorporating with Airbits because they have a very great solution to edge security. How you actually enable to protect people from getting their end devices hacked or getting the password breached and getting the funds or tokens lost. So this is the national.
That is great. So 2 more things. Obviously, you are very well involved in this project, but it is a team effort. So do you want to mention a few of the other people just briefly that are involved and kind of how good the team feels and is?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think we managed to create a great team. I mean, I was at our project before, and I think that we managed to have the sweet spot between the makers, and the ideas guys, which were important in these kind of projects. So Boris is kind of the heart of the project. Boris is the guy who was the crypto creator, and he today has one of the most experience in doing the blockchain and the work on this. Boris Povod, very known guy. He also advising to Lisk on their architecture and stuff. Dominic, which you actually met through us, is a very big asset to our team. He is, as you know, was participating in projects like Mastercoin, Omni, even before, the first so-called ICO, and he learned much from it. He has lots of connections, lots of experience, and again, he's a big asset to the product because he just opened so much door for us. Sergey is the mathematical full professor which teaches in Unicamp, and he the guy who actually both responsible for the maths of the project and the general flow layout of it. Of course, Sebastian, it's the project manager who works with us closely and makes sure everything ticks. He's actually the closest thing we have to the CEO today, and he keeps the whole company in touch. Nikolai, which is responsible for the Russian segment, Russian, East and Western Europe, represents us there. I mean, enables all the work there, all the promotion. Eric Gu, who is actually quite known in the Chinese community, who works with Metaverse, very known in China, and opening for us the China. Leor and Matthew, who are our valuable legal advisors, who actually made us making sure that Wings is fully regulated and fully focused on and being able to pass, never be triggered any kind of security laws. They did a lot of work, both convincing us that we should be fully legal, not to run and rush with the campaign, as we see many projects doing this day. And they also were instrumental in structuring and helping structuring the whole team and the foundation. And thanks to them, we now can feel that we are totally safe from any kind of future interference by legal law, that we did everything we can in order to be totally compliant. And of course, our other team members, which are Pavel and Alex, both developers who works behind Wings, and help Boris and Ami with the daily developing. And also Nimrod, who is a very known person in the Kickstarter community. He had several projects on the Kickstarter, and he's instrumental in bringing us those interesting projects, both from Israel and other areas that want to use Wings for their projects.
Right. Yeah. So I wanted to give you, I always like to give people a chance to acknowledge. I mean, you're sharing a lot of information. Hopefully people make it this far, but I like to give people a chance to give credit to everyone. Now, why don't you just tell us about the sale? The sale's starting in a week. What is I guess, how much does it cost? How much are you guys keeping? What's the allocation?
Sure. We are totally clear, transparent on us. And by the way, again, it's not sale, it's campaign. We are legally bound.
Oh, yes. I am sorry. I'm sorry. Look,
yeah,
it is a campaign for a software token.
To use campaign because again, this is a campaign. It's not a sale of crowd.
Yes.
In nutshell, we basically created a very transparent, which is both listed on our blog, and it will be also listed on our site. It will be also listed in the terms of sale. We did make a very detailed terms of sale, terms of service, not terms of service, which will be held as bound to these terms, even not by us or the foundation, by the Swiss government. It's very important to understand that Swiss government basically gives Wings Foundation a stamp of approval and will also control its activities. By the way, it's exactly the same structure which was with Ethereum. We use the same legal company and some structure with Ethereum use it, and we see that so far it worked very well. It kept them from a lot of trouble, and it managed helping them to deliver the project. We're going to put 100 million tokens for which will be totally issued on the Wings tokens. From there, 75 millions will be set up to the campaign. The rest 25, there's a very clear distribution how it's being spread. Part of it going to the bounty. As you remember, we had a very successful bounty campaign, which brought a lot of attention to the Wings project. So part of it will be going to it. Part of it will be going to the referral, enable to make people more incentive to make people know about the Wings campaign and bring more backers. Part of it will be given to our advisors, which helped us through the way. And part of it will be staying in allocation for both hiring new advisor, most people, and also giving team performance bonuses. Now, it's a very important point to mention that we decided also here voluntarily to take on us a further obligation, and actually all the tokens which belong to the team will be vested. We all going to get them in installments, which will be spread to the 36 months. And of course, if a team member stops working or leaves the team, he will no longer get those tokens. We, as I said, we want to create a new standard of projects. We want to copy and adapt same practices which is already working for a long time in the traditional startup ecosystem.
Right.
As much as traditional.
Yeah.
So we're also going to put a table which will be very clear on the site in our terms of service, showing that each and every team member will get those tokens only after it worked for a certain amount of time, and if he will getting it only with in a very spread installments.
Yeah, it's a rare thing, but it's kind of the golden rule. So if you're going to hold other companies in your system to that, you might as well hold yourself to that.
Exactly.
Obviously, everyone, if you made it this far, do your research. The project sounds interesting, but please, if you can read the white paper, if you can learn about it on their website, Wings.ai, be smart and think about what you'd like to contribute to this project. But I just want to sum up. I'm excited because there's been this long belief that Bitcoin is limited. And now with sidechains and things like Rootstock, Bitcoin is going to be opened up to a lot of new possibilities. And Wings is something like that. So even if you aren't an ICO investor, you found this podcast, this is something that could bring value to Bitcoin. And it's something to watch, because if this is successful and people find that what Ethereum has offered and what all these other things have offered can be done with Bitcoin, it really could, become the Rootstock as a whole, but this project becomes something that reignites the passion and excitement of developers and people on Bitcoin itself. And that's something I think is great. So I'd like to thank you for your time, Stas. I think this is fascinating. That's why it went on so long. And I hope you guys check out Wings.ai. And what's the date of the sale?
It begins on 18 November. There will be some kind of, we like to call it the visionary bonus of 10% for the first 10,000 Bitcoins, if we get, of course, to this target. and it will be for 49 days, in able to make sure everybody